Not first, not second, not third or fourth. The fifth round is finally where Shedeur Sanders falls. Did Cleveland finally win a draft weekend? And are the Browns set up shiny for the future?
We finally know where Travis Hunter's going. The Jacksonville Jaguars trade up with the Browns for the two-way generational player.
The biggest chip of the offseason has fallen. That's right. It was the NFL draft weekend. Sunday Scaries with Buccs McGee talks all the big headlines from our favorite weekend of the spring.
Oh, it's been a while. It's been so long, but we are back. NFL Draft 2025 in the books, and oh man, some juicy juice. Mr. Nutmeg, how are we doing?
Gotta shake the rust off, Bucks McGee. Shake the rust off.
Oh, seriously, I WD-40'd myself. I was like, oh man, how do we do this again? Seriously, man, crazy. But a beautiful weekend, lots of draft. Oh man, I'm a little burnt, but excited.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the break, Bucks McGee, because we have less than a month before schedule release day. So the draft was just the first domino to fall.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. The world's finally becoming right again.
Yes, we can see September oh so quickly now.
The faint light is slowly, day by day, getting brighter.
Yes. Well, obviously the big storyline going into the draft was one forlorn scout deciding to crash and burn Shedeur Sanders and say he wasn't coachable or he was immature or he was entitled, whatever the choice of words may be. And not only does he not go in the first round, but falls all the way past the first day, the second day, into the third day, finally into the Cleveland Browns laps in the fifth round. And I feel like, on one hand, we spent a lot of time last year dumping on Deshaun Watson. This could be insurance in case the inevitable happens again and Deshaun Watson doesn't play. However, this could also be, regardless of what happens with Deshaun Watson, this is just Cleveland positioning themselves to have a quarterback of the future.
Oh man, Shedeur, man. This was worse than the Aaron Rodgers fiasco when he sat in the green room. Yeah, it's one of those things where as we got closer to the draft, you saw in all the mocks, he started to drop bit by bit by bit. And then it turned into, well, why is he dropping? You had one group that was, oh, he's got all the talent. This is just blasphemy. People are just talking horrible. There were other people who said he really isn't that talented. He's decent, but he's not worth, a first round pick. And I think some of the things that may have hurt him were first his dad. I think honestly teams didn't want to deal with Dion because early, especially, during the season and, once the season was over, he was talking kind of like Archie Manning, like if it's not a good fit for my son, we're not going.
Yeah.
Now, like that, teams don't want to deal with that. Teams do not want an overbearing parent to sit there and hold their team hostage on draft night. Then, his interviews, there was rumors that the Giants interview didn't go that well, that he was unprepared. Then, maybe he should have performed at the combine. Nowadays, a lot of the guys who assume they're going top 10, kind of just are like, you have my film. I don't need to perform at the combine. I think that probably hurt him too. I think if he had at least performed at the combine and performed well enough, I don't think he would have dropped to the fifth. He may have still dropped to third round, but, third's better than five.
Yeah, when you say it's like, okay, people may have been saying he didn't have the talent for first round, but for that to then be applied to the second, the third, the fourth.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly thought that he was going to go to the Steelers. I thought the Steelers were going to say, okay, he drops to 21. because they have no idea what's going on. Aaron Rodgers, again, story of the offseason, holding a team hostage in theory, because right now, if the season starts today, Mason Rudolph's their guy. So I'm thinking, all right, Shedeur's going 21st. When that doesn't happen, then, there was talk of, the Giants, trading back in possibly for a quarterback. That happens. It's not Shedeur, and then it's all bets are off at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, the whole Eli Manning thing. I mean, I think that probably because of just Prime being who he is and the personality it is, that probably was
Mm-hmm.
a legitimate concern at one point. But Dion, as far as the post draft fallout's been concerned, has really been the good soldier. So yeah, and you would think that the Browns of all franchises would be the one franchise that a prominent personality like Deion Sanders wouldn't want their child going to.
At this point, the Browns are just throwing stuff against the wall and whatever sticks. Like, we don't even know who the quarterback's going to be. They have 5 guys in that quarterback room right now. At this point, most people would probably bet Flacco's going to be the starter.
Yeah.
So, now, mind you, in his last run there, he played well. I don't know if it's going to happen again. But right now, Shedeur needs to just go in with his head down and just do what he needs to do.
And speaking now, we certainly dump on Cleveland enough, as historically many people have. But this was actually a weekend where they kind of came out smelling like a rose. Not only did Shedeur fall into their lap, they got Mason Graham, very highly touted defensive lineman prospect, and by getting him was a way to trade down, and the Jags moved up. So before we get into the other side of that, what's kind of the overall emphasis of Cleveland? Did they kind of turn the tides here from getting the guy they wanted up top at a little bit of a lesser price tag, and then also getting a potential steal in Sanders? Like, where did as in this trade, they got an extra pick this year, and they got another future first rounder. So they really, to me, they really had a great weekend, which is not a normal Browns thing to say.
No, exactly. If you look at the trade, Jacksonville, for a generational talent, yeah, you're going to make this trade, but that first round pick, I think, has kind of everybody on edge, because if Jacksonville doesn't turn it around right off the bat, that first round pick is going to be quite nice. And if you look, like you said, they got Mason Graham, and then in the second round, they got Quinshawn Jenkins from Ohio State, who's a really good back. Because right now we don't know what the running back situation is going to be in Cleveland.
Yeah, Chubb's been hurt twice now, so.
Yeah, and I don't think they're looking at Ford as the number one guy. So Jenkins could have a strong camp and end up being the guy. So they basically with this trade shored up 2 spots, and with this first rounder next year, I'm sure they're sitting there praying that the Jags fall apart. They could be sitting really good, and they could probably flip that next year if they wanted to. So no, I think for what they need as a franchise, probably the smarter move.
Yeah, and I guess a welcome sight that maybe the fans may not have to deal with Deshaun Watson for too much longer, because if the leash wasn't short before, it'll be really short now.
It's done. All right, it's a failed attempt. Now you're just take the money, dig a hole and throw it in there. That's what it is. You don't know when he's coming back. Like, unless he comes back, let's say like week 5, week 6, and they go on some torrid run, and all of a sudden he is, the Watson of, Houston Texans lore. Just let it go and move on. It was a failed attempt. It was a bad deal. You learn from it. You move on.
Yeah. So, as far as the other side of this Travis Hunter deal is concerned, was it worth it for the Jags? I know I personally have a strong disdain for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you, in the last 4 or 5 months or so, may have grown your disdain for the Jags to equally as such. So, was this worth it to trade up for Travis Hunter?
Oh, my friend Liam Cohen. Oh, yes, my friend. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to change the culture. They're trying to figure things out there in Jacksonville. literally this team for years was potential based. They had the talent. It was like, oh, next year it's going to be next year. Then the coaching falls apart. From Urban Meyer, you bring in our boy Doug Peterson, and he kind of
I'm
shores things
stuck.
up. Doug comes in, plays good soldier, but they just can't get it together. So then Cohen goes, and I think they're trying to just change everything now. It's one of those things where Hunter is a generational talent, but yeah, you have to think, they paid a steep price. Is he going to be worth it? Reports out of there are that Hunter is going to start out at wide receiver and they're going to sprinkle him at DB. Now, Hunter was very firm and said that he wanted to play both positions, and that if he couldn't, he wouldn't even play football anymore. So now the Jags have to kind of sit there and monitor this and kind of placate to the kid and say, all right, we got to make sure we give him enough touches on both sides, or we're going to have an unhappy kid.
Yeah. So I mean, where is he kind of best suited if he's only going to play on one side of the ball, especially for
Oh,
the
he's
team he
he's
lands on?
not. He's playing both. He's playing both. There's no doubt. I think what they're going to do is they're going to, because with him at wide receiver, I think it opens it up. Kid's got talent at wide receiver and cornerback. Let's be real. That's why he went as high as he did. So it's going to be a situation where I think, primarily he'll be wide receiver. They're probably going to put him on defense, maybe 10 to 15 plays to start. And then depending how things go, they'll ramp that up. But I think he's going to see significant time on both sides.
Throwback to playing high school ball, where everyone plays both sides of the ball.
Exactly. But he also has to understand that this is different than college. The guys are
Yeah.
faster, they hit harder. So it may be a point where he gets halfway through the season. He's like, you know what? Put me in like maybe 2 or 3 packages on defense. I'll stick to wide receiver. We're going to find out.
Yeah. I mean, to that point, I mean, what is like there could be a significant chance of burnout or getting beat around on defense. It's like, you know what, let me at least play more on the offensive side where, guys sneeze on me and it's PI.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where you put all your eggs in this one basket. Because if you're like, besides Hunter, their draft was all right, but you literally probably could have flipped that pick and solidified more spots on that team. Because let's be honest, they weren't very good. They
Mm-hmm.
weren't very good. They needed more help at wide receiver. There were a couple guys who they probably could have gotten. They probably could have gotten 2 receivers instead of just going with Hunter, and kind of filled in some other spots if they traded out of that spot. I think they kind of did a disservice and said, okay, we want the shiny new toy, but everything else we'll just kind of figure out as we go.
Yeah, which is there's not too much left on the plate unless there's some really
Yeah.
gems they know of in the undrafted
Yeah.
class.
Running back is an issue for them. Let's be honest. Running back is an issue because a lot of people thought that maybe they were going to go after Genty,
Yeah, and,
but I don't know.
and yeah, and Bigsby in Etienne's absence didn't exactly fill out to the way fantasy owners probably thought he would. So that's probably a significant cause for concern as far as on the field, real life goes as well.
Exactly. And you probably could have traded out of that spot, got some picks, and picked up some of those other quality running backs for less, and
Mm.
did other things, shored up that defense. Like, I don't know. I think Hunter's a great talent, but I don't know if he's gonna give you 5 more wins.
Yeah, especially when he has to split his efforts between two sides.
Exactly. Was it worth doing that? Do you if the move was going to guarantee you a division title, then hey, I'm all about it. Do I think it does? No. It helps, but it's not. I think they could have done more.
Well, speaking of the division, quarter way into the show, and we haven't talked about who went first overall. Another team that I usually have disdain for over the course of the season. The Tennessee Titans on the board. And number 1, they took Cam Ward, Now, on one hand, I can ask you, will this finally be the quarterback that turns the Titans around? And on the other hand, I could ask you, are they maybe a little too quick to pull the trigger on Will Levis? Could they have added someone else to bolster the team and give Will Levis another chance?
No, I think Cam Ward was the right pick. I think he's talented, multifaceted. He kind of reminds me of a better version of Steve McNair. He can
Mm-hmm.
do it with his arm and he can do it with his legs. And you know what's funny? It's he was like the quietest number one pick like ever. Like you didn't hear it was like, okay, yeah, Cam Ward number one. All right, forget it. Let's all talk about Shedeur now. Like literally, the
Yeah,
guy just got his hat, hugged the commissioner, and went on his way. Um, I think he's I think he was the right pick. I don't think Will Levis. I think they need to move on. I'm sure maybe the Steelers want him. Maybe the Steelers can do something with him. Let's be
mm-hmm.
honest, because I think Levitz truly believes he's a starter. I think he believes he's a starter. I don't think he's going to be good in that room. It might be a situation where he starts to grumble a bit. Just go ahead and trade him, send him somewhere where he has a chance. But I think with Tennessee, new coaching staff and everything, I think Cam Ward is the perfect piece.
That was an interesting hypothetical because Levis certainly is the type of quarterback that usually Pittsburgh loves.
Yeah, he's like Big Ben's little brother.
Yeah.
You know, he needs to get off the mayonnaise, start liking ketchup Heinz. It's all good. They'll be all set there.
So no concern with Cam Ward as far as his arm strength is concerned. He's more of like the West Coast quarterback.
No, I think he can make all the throws. He'll get stronger. The key to it though too is like I said, his legs. He can move in the pocket. He can extend plays. I think he's a perfect fit, and I think they're going to build around that talent. And you'll probably honestly, I think in a couple of years they're going to be good. I think they kind of understand that the Mike Vrabel era is over. The Derrick Henry time is up. They're both gone. They're looking for a new identity, and Cam Ward's the guy.
Had a transitional time that left a lot to be desired. So now it's kind of time to realize, okay, new era for real this time.
Calvin Ridley's happy. He's gonna be good to go. He'll live the dream. They need to get some receivers and such, but I think that they've started out with your cornerstone, which they needed, and you just go from there.
Yeah. To your point about the quietest number one pick, we also have to remember that Miami had a lot of expectations going into the playoff, and the bottom fell out from under them, and they weren't really much of a playoff threat at all.
Yeah, but I think also a lot of that too was the coaching too. They made some questionable decisions and such. I think Cam Cam kept that offense moving. Like literally his stats. If you look at his stats from last year, he was solid. He was great. It's just
Mm.
one of those things where sometimes all that hubbub doesn't come to fruition. But I think if people felt that it was on Ward's shoulders, he wouldn't have gone number one.
Another Cam at quarterback in the NFL, if not a slightly different style of a Cam.
Yeah, no.
Another team that we like to dump on a little bit this season, last season rather, was the New York Football Giants. Now, the Giants had a lot to address in the offseason in the draft, and they kind of maybe they had in their heads to dial the clock back to the Strahan and OC days and Justin Tuck days and get the premier pass rusher out of the draft. Do you like the Abdul Carter thing? Should they gone a different direction?
If they're gonna win games 10-9, then yeah, he's the guy. But
Mm-hmm.
you bring in Brian Burns, you have Thibodeau there, like you have your defensive line is solid there. I guess bringing in the the best available player. I get it,
No,
but
draft on talent.
yeah, but I don't know. Maybe I think maybe Genty might have been a good pick for them. Like I understand, the Giants and the taboo picking a running back so high, aka Saquon. We know how this all turned out, but that offense is in a rough state. Um, yeah, I guess what I think is going to happen is one of the other guys, probably Thibodeau, could end up being traded at some point. I think Burns, they put too much money in, so we'll see how it works out. They're going to have if those guys stay healthy, their pass rush should be great, but where are your points coming from? Because you've got holes in a lot of that offense, but talent was there. I can't fault him for it. I guess I'm a guy who's like, all right, what else can I get? If I look at the team and I say, all right, there's no way we're making the playoffs or even a Super Bowl run. Can I flip this into multiple pieces so that in 2 to 3 years, I'm set for a long run?
Yeah. Well, they did at least get one more pick out of the first round. They moved up after kind of quote unquote settling in the off season on Russell Wilson. It wasn't exactly like he put up a ton of points in Pittsburgh. So, like you said, we don't know where the points are coming from out of New York.
Famous Jameis is putting them points up.
Yeah, that was kind of a slap in the face to Jameis to
No
sign
respect.
Russell like 2 weeks later.
No respect.
And maybe this is another slap in the face. They move up to select Jackson Dart. Now this is a guy that got a lot of draft buzz out through the workouts in the combine. But was this a smart decision for the Giants, or were they just making moves on draft night for moves for the sake of making moves?
Well, here's the deal: the Giants, GM coach, trying to preserve their jobs. Let's be honest here, trying to preserve their jobs, because everyone knows that if they're not at least somewhat competitive this year, they're both gone. Now, the whispers on Dart were, Josh Allen-esque with the arm strength and the movement and stuff. So Brian Gable's like, hey man, I got him right, before I left Buffalo. So here's his, Josh 2.0. The kid has talent. And listening to the experts and such like that, they said that his biggest issue was his footwork, because guys who are that strong, arm wise and things like that, sometimes may not set their feet right and just try to do it on arm strength. So he's going to have to learn proper footwork, but he's in a decent position because he doesn't have to start week 1. He can sit there, kind of watch, see what not to do, improve himself, and then maybe next year he ends up taking the reins. So they drafted on potential. The guys got it. It's just if Daboll can turn it into something tangible.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with my team putting a quarterback in way too early, and the Giants certainly, like you said, are devoid of that potential problem, because they do have 2 veteran quarterbacks ahead of Jackson Dart.
I do want to say one more thing. It's been fun, Tony Cutlets. We will miss you, because there's no way they're keeping 4 quarterbacks. So Tommy Cutlets, good luck.
Bye. You were a great byline in the Sports Center reader for a couple of years.
We loved you, man. You were good. You were there, man. Hopefully, who knows where you end up, but who knows? You could be Cleveland starting, by week 7. You never know.
Your legend and memory will live on, indeed. A team that normally makes some head-scratching decisions on draft day and kind of comes out of the middle of the woodwork is the Raiders, the Oakland/Las Vegas Raiders. But they didn't do that on this draft. Ashton Genty, the best kind of dynamic player on the board, and goes to the Raiders. And you could say this is a Brady Carroll pick. You could also just say it's a position of need, because their running game was wholly underwhelming last
year. Yeah, once you let Josh Jacobs go, then you pretty much don't have much left in the cupboard. You're gonna hurt. So yeah, basically, I think to Pete Carroll, Genty is Marshawn Lynch 2.0. Mm-hmm. I think he's gonna fit in that offense. If you watched him play, hard to tackle. Takes the hits, bounces off, not blazing speed, but does have solid, almost breakaway speed, and I think he's a perfect fit for this offense.
Do you think there's now enough of hope in Vegas for the Raiders to compete again?
I think they're going to be interesting. I'm not. They're not gonna. I don't know if they're ready to win that division. I think they're going to make some noise. They could, I know, schedule hasn't come out yet and all of that, but they could be a 9-win team. They might be. They might, you got Geno, they've got, you got Brock Bowers. You've got pieces around. It's just, the defense is going to have to play well, and they've got a running game now, so that's going to help out immensely. So they're going to surprise some people, but I'm holding the horses on saying, oh yeah, they're AFC West champs.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, there's a lot to climb there. I mean, if the Chargers can ever get their ship righted, and the Chiefs, of course, as much as we love to see that loss in the Super Bowl, uh, and the Broncos, of course, the Bo Nix train, probably not getting off the station quite yet. But yeah, I mean, Genty and Bowers is if Chino has anything left in the tank, that's a pretty decent foundation to try and make some wild card magic maybe interesting.
Oh, definitely. I think they're going to surprise some people this year. I think they're gonna win some games that maybe they're not supposed to, but I think they're still a year or two away. But it's a good start for sure.
Yeah. So we'll talk our teams. Uh, I wasn't necessarily expecting a tight end, the Colts to take a tight end. But that being said, this has been a position of need for a few years now. Nothing against Mo Alley Cox, but uh, he wasn't exactly
Molly!
the franchise pass catcher off the line. But Tyler Warren out of Penn State, there were arguments of whether him and Loveland were the best tight end in the draft. So I will gladly take that, and that whether it's AR or Danny Dimes, that could be a weapon to really help the quarterback move the ball and maybe make some space for Taylor.
Oh, definitely. I think it's a great pick. Warren. I saw some Penn State games. Got great hands. Finds himself can find a hole in the zone. And once he gets north south, he can run. Great hands. He'll get you 50-50 balls for sure. So I think this is exactly what the Colts need. I think it helps. I think the wide receiving core there was a little underwhelming. We've talked about that. I think this really helps, and especially with the uncertainty at quarterback. Everyone knows a quarterback's best friend is a good tight end, and I think this kid is really going to be good. I don't know if he's going to be Brock Bowers good, but he's going to be up there for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I won't pretend to be the college football expert, but going down our other picks, we had an edge rusher, we took a running back, we took a cornerback, so we at least drafted very much on need. So it'll just put faith in the basket of the front office that Ballard, still kind of knows what he's doing.
No, and I think Warren was a big step in that. It gives you that piece where depending on who the quarterback is, because right now it's kind of almost in the air. It's almost a dead heat starting mini camps and such. But to have something like Warren available, I think works. Especially both quarterbacks are mobile, so if something breaks in the pocket, you've got this guy who's down in the field who's going to find his way open. If he's got one of the guys got to loft it up, he can come down with it. So I think it's a great pick.
And a pass catcher onto the Tampa Bay Bucks, Emeka Egbuka.
Yep, the G is silent. The G is silent. Emeka Egbuka. Egbuka, yes. So I was in Tampa for the draft, and it took me a day or two to kind of sit because I was hell bent on defense. I'm like, cornerback, let's go. I was looking at Amari, the guy from South Carolina. I forget his last name. I can never say his name right, but there was him. There was Starks out of Georgia. There were a lot of guys. I was like, okay, this has got to happen. So then, the pick happens, and I'm kind of like, okay, you do know I still have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I've got McMillan. I've got some guys who can catch the ball. But, after a day, you kind of see what Tampa did. Mike's coming into the last year of the contract. He's going to be 32. Don't know how much longer he's going to play at the level that he has. Godwin's got to stay healthy. They re-signed him for 3 years, but he's got to stay healthy. So right now, McMillan and Bucca are kind of like the nucleus of the future. So I kind of like it. It's going to be interesting to see what these you go 3 wide receiver, who's going to be your third, or are you going to go 4? If you go 4, there's speed all over the place. So this is going to open some stuff up along with Bucky Irving and such. So it's interesting to see how this is all going to play out. And if you look at the wide receiver roster now, Trey Palmer is very well could be one of the odd men out. And I like Trey Palmer a lot. He could end up going somewhere else. Exactly. And there's speed and such all over the place. Now it's who's going to win a job come training camp. But he was great in Ohio State, talented. He can run routes. He's clean. He can, find the zone or stretch the field. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it was not a position of need. So, I mean, do you think that they were just overthinking this, or are you kind of like waiting in bated breath?
At first, I was like, "What's going on?" But then, like I said, because when you're a fan, it's all emotion because you think you know what your team needs, and you're like, "This is what I saw." Because let's be honest, the hole for us was secondary and at linebacker. So I'm like, okay, this is where we're gonna hit it. We're good to go. And then we're drafting wide receiver, and I'm like, okay, so we're gonna score 40. We're gonna score 43 points, but give up 48 points. Well, what are we gonna do here?
Yeah.
And then as the draft went on, I saw the other pieces we picked up, which were really good. So I'm confident that they have a plan. Like I said, it took me some time. I'm excited for it. I just have to see week 1 who we bring out there. But yeah, you have to really think about it from the terms of, like I said, Mike's getting older, and is Godwin going to be 100%? If Godwin isn't back by like week 3 or 4, it's going to be a slow process bringing him back. So right now, you've got 3 guaranteed starting wide receivers that are going to be really good. So you take it and you roll with it.
Yeah, that's almost like the inverse of the old Patriots way, where they say goodbye too early rather than too late. This is, in a worst case scenario, it's making decisions on could be's instead of actual what's in front of you.
Exactly. So I think they feel that Mike's probably got another year or 2 left. I don't. He's probably going to start playing on 1-year contracts. I don't think he's ever going to leave Tampa. I think it's pretty much guaranteed. So I think it'll just be a point when he feels he's ready to hang it up. If Godwin stays healthy, then we're 3 years of quality there. And then, like I said, Bucca and McMillan, it's a great nucleus. So the offense still has the weapons. So I'm excited.
Yeah. So I mean, those are all first rounders, and they're all prospects that teams were pretty confident in. So we'll try to dig out some gems from later rounds and teams that maybe filled the need with a significant player. Um, so the first one I had noticed is Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a big note. The Patriots' offense has been pretty woeful outside of Drake May. They did it. They did address their offensive line right off the rip, which is I would think was a smart idea. But they also brought in another running back. Maybe it's a sign that Ramondre Stevenson. They're maybe done with him finally. I think that's a decent pick, getting Travion Henderson.
No, he was great in Ohio State. They had a 2-back system with him and Jenkins there. So I think he's gonna be great in New England. Maybe New England goes with like a 2-backs situation right now. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. New England's a project, and I think they know that. So they're gonna take their time and build it right. They're not gonna try to rush it. But yeah, he was great in Ohio State, physical. It's got some great speed, and he feels like a Patriot running back.
Yeah, Vrabel's Vrabel has the keys to the castle, right? So he's very much going into that Belichick chef's kitchen mode.
Exactly, and you brought the guy in, you let him cook.
Yeah,
So
and,
so
and him being a
but
defensive-minded coach, but drafting a lot of offense right now, because he knows his bread's going to be buttered with May if this tenure's to be successful.
oh, definitely. And I think that defense has enough pieces where they're decent and they're going to get better, but the offense was light years behind that right now. So
Mhm.
you pick up these pieces and you get them up to snuff. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, smart and trust your team, even if maybe it's not your wheelhouse. Build a team that can support your own deficiencies.
Exactly. So for me, Cam Scatterbo, my man from Arizona State, the darling of the college playoffs. Um, to me, it kind of reminds me of a better version of Peyton Hillis. Now,
Okay.
you know, physical guy can run. The guy will run through a wall. You know, hard to bring down. He's got actually nice hands too. Can catch the ball out of the backfield. Giants took a flyer on him in the fourth round. I think he might work well with Tracy. A little, I don't know if it's going to be thunder and lightning kind of deal, but he could spell some relief for Tracy. The thing's going to be with that running style, running backs short lifespan,
Yeah.
short lifespan. So it's going to be a situation of how many reps is he going to get? Can he stay healthy? If he can stay healthy, he could be a quality back. He could be maybe a Mike Allstat-esque kind of guy.
Ooh,
Oh, the A
insulting some
trade,
emotion
the A
there.
trade, oh, the A trade. So I like what the Giants did because Tracy was good last year, but he had some fumbles and things like that. So I think it's a nice change of pace. And like I said, the guy's got decent hands out of the backfield, so that helps out a lot.
Well, the other thing with Tyrone Tracy is there's not exactly a long depth chart behind him, so there's going to be opportunity for Scatabo to play immediately.
Yeah, he was pretty much Tracy was pretty much starter by default. There wasn't anything behind him, so he was getting reps, and he showed some signs. But then the fumbles showed up, at inopportune times, and I think that kind of messed with his head a little bit. So I think it'll be good to have someone else there and kind of take the load off a bit for him.
And I feel like a hard nosed runner will endear a player to the New York fan base quite well because they do like guys that run ahead and get dirty, and the kind of scat backs and out of the backfield guys aren't as in love. The fan base doesn't fall in love with them as much as the ones who get dirty.
Exactly. He's a blue collar kind of guy. I think once he has that first run where he drops his shoulder and takes a linebacker down, all of a sudden, he'll have some catchphrase or something, and he's going to be the guy.
Yeah. Uh, my next one, I'm gonna go on the defensive side of the ball, and this is a guy that kind of does have the shutdown corner moniker on him, but didn't get a lot of first round buzz. That's Will Johnson out of Michigan, and the Arizona Cardinals certainly aren't anything thought of as a defensive stalwart. So for them to make an attempt to shut down one side of the field with Will Johnson, I think that was a great move for them, especially getting him in the second round.
Oh yeah, Johnson. The only reason he fell at all was because of injury. His medicals were an issue. They didn't know if he's going to be 100%. If he didn't get hurt, he would have been a top 10. He probably would have been a top 12, top 10 pick easy. Like he is a shutdown. Like I wanted him to fall enough where the Bucs would have had a shot to pick him up and just bring him around slowly. He is unbelievable. The kid is long. He's got great hands. He shuts you down. So Arizona got lucky. Now the question is, are they going to be smart with him? Bring him up, bring him along slowly. Make sure that he's
He's healthy.
100%. Because if you rush him, then it's going to be a lost cause for the year. But the kid has talent beyond belief.
Yeah, I mean, you could wind up even being a situation where you rush him and then he gets hurt, and then you rush him back and he gets hurt again. He could play like 2 to 5 games a season and never really be healthy, almost like a Bob Sanders type.
Yeah, it's a situation where there's all the potential, but it's never realized because he's always hurt.
Yeah,
So I think Arizona was smart. Hey, this kind of player falls to you. You just got to be smart with them. And if they are, and he heals, becomes 100%, he's going to be he's going to be unbelievable in that secondary.
Yeah. And to your point, I was also kind of hoping he would fall to the Colts, but alas.
I was like, oh, he's still not picked up. All right, all right. And the next, I
Yeah.
hear Arizona. I'm like, whatever, man. I'm done. Taking a break. Oh man. All right. So my next one, and this guy has been picked up by the Colts. Riley Leonard, quarterback from Notre Dame. Kind of, little not the greatest arm, but the guy's got heart. Guy's mobile in the pocket. And watching Notre Dame during the college playoff, they lived and died by his legs. There were times where he couldn't, the passing game wasn't there. He was able to pick up first downs, mobile. Sixth round pick. Everyone knows that sometimes a sixth round pick quarterback could lead to greatness. You never know. I'm not saying anything, but Chase, maybe hang your hat on that. But
Maybe.
but I think the kid's got heart, and who knows, if he can, get some reps in, he may endear himself to the Indy crowd and may end up being a number 2 guy.
I'd certainly take that. And I mean, I feel like the leash is going to be pretty short because Danny Dimes is a rebuild prospect of sorts, and AR certainly has a very extremely short leash. Uh, I part of me is happy that this maybe means the end of Sam Ellinger. Goodbye, Sam.
Oh, Sam, man. Sam is like that guy on your team. You just like him because he doesn't get play. He doesn't get any play, but he's there and he somehow has been around for like 5-6 years. You're like that guy.
That guy.
He's doing like local like grocery store commercials. They keep him around. He's gonna end up opening like an insurance, little office in your town. He's that guy.
The Indianapolis community shopping at Kroger are the only ones that will know Sam Ellinger had that commercial.
He's gonna manage Kroger's in like 3 years. He's gonna have a chain of them. Go ahead, Sam. I'll shop there for you.
To your point on mobility, that would be the one thing that maybe it's too much of the same piece because obviously AR strength is very much mobility. Danny Dimes, a big facet of his game is his mobility. So that would be my only maybe concern is the fact that we've got 3 quarterbacks that are kind of all the same player.
True, but I think if he can develop and make the throws that he needs to, then he's going to be all right. That's going to be the key there. First of all, they can't put AR out there when he's got like a busted up arm and shoulder, and let's put him back out there and run him. It's going to be a situation where does AR develop into the talent that they thought they were drafting? Are they in a win now mode? Because honestly, if you were to tell me to start today, I would start Danny Dimes. I think Danny Dimes isn't horrible. I think he's smart. I just think he got a bad rap in New York. Shouldn't have been given the extension, but he also didn't have the pieces either. So I think this is going to be a rebirth for him in a way. And if Riley can kind of just learn and when his opportunities come, not try to run, all the time, but make the throws, pick up the first downs when you need to. He could be one of those things where he's a project and ends up becoming a decent starter somewhere, a bridge guy.
And those opportunities may arise in Indianapolis because even if I agree with you that Danny Dimes is the better option over AR, that's also not saying much. So Riley Leonard, if the opportunity presents itself, it could present itself somewhat quickly.
All you need is to get Mo Lewis 1 week just to come in and deliver a hit, and then there it is, man. That's all you need. You need a Mo Lewis in your life.
Mo Lewis. We'll stay on quarterbacks for a moment, and this is one that I mean Jalen Milroe. Anyone that's watched college football in the last couple of years knows Jalen Milroe. He gets drafted by the Seahawks. Interesting team here because they recently sent off Sam Howell to Minnesota. Obviously, they gave Sam Darnold a ton of money in the offseason. So they're kind of bolstering some quarterback insurance with quarterback who's played a lot of important minutes for a premier program in the country.
Well, I guess maybe their thought process is this. They signed Darnold. Darnold was 3 years, right?
Mhm.
Was Darnold a 3-year deal? I believe
3 or 4.
3 or 4, right? So you figure Milrose is a 3 or 4 year project. He is like the physical tools are there, but it's like the beginning of the year he was going to be like the Heisman guy. This was it, and then it just fell apart. So maybe they figure, all right, we've got Darnold. Darnold's going to be our guy. Once that 3rd year, 4th year comes around, Milrose is developed enough. He's got the physical tools. Maybe he can step in, and we've got our guy for the next 7-8 years. They just have to work. They have to work and just develop him. If they can do that, he could end up being a solid quarterback. The tools are there. It's just he needs to develop.
Yeah, he would almost that type of project I feel like is the type that you cannot have another Justin Fields situation. Like Seattle would really have to commit to McDonald and their leadership structure because someone
Mm-hmm.
like Milrow, if you start changing coaches, even general managers, and bring in different leadership, different influences, the Milrow project would go completely off the rails, and it would be a wasted pick. And Sam Darnold's would leave, and then you'd have no young quarterback to take his place.
No, not at all. So, I on potential, I like the pick. It's just going to be one of those things where, as long as he's got good people around and they develop him, could be a surprise. For me, I went with 7th round Oregon wide receiver Tez Johnson. Played with Bo
Another
Nix.
receiver.
Another receiver, man. I'm telling you, man. If there are any teams that need a receiver, come to Tampa, man. We could wheel and deal. I saw a couple of his games. He played with Bo Nix. Him and Bo Nix are extremely tight. He actually lived with Bo Nix's family in high school, so him and Bo Nix have been besties forever. So it's one of those things where the kids had to grow up a little sooner, a little quicker than normal, but he's quick. He is a little lean. I think he went into the draft at like 165, so he's gonna have to muscle up. There's no doubt about it. But he's got great hands. He's got return man potential. The comps, if you read some draft boards, were Tank Dell-esque. If someone can give me some Tank Dell, I'll take it. Minus the injuries, I'll take the
only
Tank
negative.
Dell.
The only negative on Tank Dell is he can't stay on the field.
Exactly. As long as I get a healthy Tank Dell, esque performance, I'm all about it. Good separation. So it's one of those things where, a couple guys get nicked up. If he can get into the lineup, could surprise some people. So I like Tez Johnson.
Quite the crowded receiver room in Tampa.
I'm telling you, man. Sheesh, man. There's like 8 or 9 of them, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know who's staying. Like, I don't know. My Sterling Shepard, he's probably gonna get booted. That's my boy. He was great last year. I was rooting for him. Like I'm gonna be crying, man. Guys are gonna be gone. I'm gonna be like, man, I love you, man. I don't know, but it's one of those things where when you got a lot of a good thing, they can probably, trade, get some future picks. You never know. Maybe there's maybe the Bengals, they've got a disgruntled D-line guy, Trey Hendrickson. We'll give you 3 wide receivers and a 3rd rounder. Come on over. I could use the 18 sacks, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, and my honorable mention. Oh man, I didn't write his name down. The D lineman from Florida, 465 pounder. Bucks picked him up. So him and Villa, if we can get that guy on the field, as long as the guy can stay healthy, oh my God, 465 pounds. That's ridiculous.
That's Vince Wilfork weight.
We are about to put the tush push on commission.
That's assuming the league hasn't already done that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All season next year, all of a sudden, you won't be able to run that anymore. But no, there's a lot of talent. I think there was some real good talent, that really fell through, but that's all just one of those things where it's injury or just how teams drafted. So there's going to be some guys that are probably going to get picked up that are going to make some noise.
Well, Bucks McGee, it's a weekend of a lot of promise and a lot of hope and a lot of well wishes for the future. Sir, give us your final take on NFL Draft 2025.
Oh man, emotions, man. Lots of ups, lots of downs. I feel bad for Shedeur, but hopefully, Cleveland, maybe that's the place for him, or he shows out and can go somewhere else. Um, Jets do what Jets do. I don't know. The Cowboys, I don't know what y'all were thinking. But it's the beginning, new season. As we get closer to schedule day, then we're going to really find out who's who. I'm excited. Um, but one thing, Steelers fans, I feel for you.